Welcome to World of Warcraft Q&A.
Oh, they're here. Hey guys, are you having fun at BlizzCon? Sounds like it. Well, welcome to the World of Warcraft Q&A here at BlizzCon 2016. I am so excited and so honored to be here. For those of you who do not know, my name is Panzer, although I guess a few of you might know me as Tradechat from YouTube, or maybe, thank you so much, or maybe from my work with Wowhead, or from that time I was on TV, although that was kind of weird and I don't really want to talk about it. Anyways, you know what I do want to talk about? World of freaking Warcraft. Yeah, you guys like WoW? You're into that? You play WoW? I have been playing WoW for nearly a decade. In Legion, I am playing a Resto Shaman, although over the years I've played nearly every single class. I've played every role, and I've died to every elevator. So I'm sure you guys might be able to relate to that, but it could just be me. But I think we can all agree that this is super exciting, and we're all pumped to grill these guys with our questions. So let me introduce our panel. On the end there, we have the executive producer of World of Warcraft, J. Allen Brack. Next to him is the game director, Ian Hazakostas. Oh, look at you, Mr. Popular. In the middle there is Matt Goss. He is the lead systems designer for World of Warcraft. Then the creative director, Alex Afrasiabi. And here on the end is the art director responsible for all the beautiful things in WoW, Chris Robinson. So for those of you who might be unfamiliar with the way this kind of works is they don't get to pick what we talk about. That wouldn't be any fun, would it? We're gonna pick what they talk about. So we're gonna be taking questions from you guys here at BlizzCon in Anaheim, California, as well as some of you guys who are at home watching via the virtual ticket because we have the magic of the internet at our fingertips. Let's start off today with a question from our audience. You guys might know him from the Realm Maintenance Podcast. Ro, what do you got for these guys?
Hi, I play Ro, a warlock with engineering in AIE on Earth and Ring. And my question for you folks is, in 7.2, outside of raising the Obliterum cap, is crafted gear going to scale up in power level to be more competitive with dungeon drops?
I mean, the short answer is yes. Like, crafting will actually catch up. We're still trying to figure out the right way to do it. We have a couple ideas. Maybe it's, maybe it is Obliterum, maybe it uses Obliterum, maybe it's a new kind of Obliterum, one that we haven't discovered yet. But yes, we want to make sure that blacksmiths, tailors, leatherworking, those all can make gear that's relevant at endgame, even in 7.2.
All right, thank you so much. Our next question is from a World of Warcraft fan from the internet, and he wants to know any plans to address the issues with low population realms and faction imbalances.
So we've talked a little bit about this challenge in the past of, it's not a great gameplay experience for us to limit the faction of characters that can be created on an individual server. So what we want to do is do a round of connected realms. Connected realms are a technology that we have that allows us to combine certain types of realms, certain realms into kind of one larger mega realm. And the idea is that we would take certain realms that favor the Alliance in terms of size, certain realms that favor the Horde in size, and kind of combine them and figure out about what the right percentage is to the best of our ability. So yes, that's something that we're working on.
Reorganization. Next question is from someone here at BlizzCon. Her name is Tanya.
Hi, I'm Book from the Old Guard on Earth and Ring, and thank you for Gnome Priests and Gnome Hunters. And my question is, now that the gnomes have been playing with the light and they're curious creatures, is there any chance we'll see gnome paladins? Or also, now that we're in the Emerald Dream, maybe some gnomes start experimenting with nature magic and become druids or shamans?
Yes, druids, tiny little druid forms.
I feel like That would make things almost too
Right, guys?
easy. That would make things almost too easy for the gnome-only guilds out there that are trying to do everything with their rosters of just gnomes. I mean, aren't you up for a challenge? Now, in all seriousness, though, when we come up with our race class combinations and what works and what doesn't, we've broadened those a lot over the years. But when we're thinking about racial identity and what affinities they do or don't have, and when we think of gnomes, they are handy. They're, they have sort of the tinkering mechanical side, and they have the arcane experimental magical side. Things that feel more spiritual or holy aren't really at all, they don't really work in the same way with gnomish culture as it's been defined overall. That's not to say that that couldn't be something that happens in the future, but for now, that's sort of where we've drawn the line.
I mean, I guess. We have another question from someone at home, and they want to know about the difference between like PvE balancing and PvP balancing, because it seems like there's been a lot more efforts to balance PvE content as far as classes go, but not as much towards PvP. And the PvP crowd is scary. Like, don't make them mad.
So I think we definitely look at both balances, and I think what often comes up is, PvE, DPS numbers, or, who's winning damage meters or those kinds of things. But I think PvP balance is harder because you have to use more of the class, and it's actually the different classes and their full utility against each other. And so we look at, we use data, we look at, what people are playing, what we hear about, and we take all those factors into account and make tweaks behind the scenes. But a lot of those things, I mean, the PvP team, if you look at our patch notes, and especially in Legion, they've been really responsive to the way the PvP meta is changing, or the, different classes being too powerful or not powerful enough. So we keep our eye on it, and we make changes when we need to.
Yeah, I mean, having for the first time in Legion a separate set of knobs to turn when it comes to individual abilities, as well as the whole honor talent system, also gives us a whole new kind of set of arrows in our quiver when it comes to solving those problems. But yeah, I mean, as Matt said, we're looking at things like representation and overall compositions. Another factor that comes into play is also something may be balanced, quote unquote, in terms of its win-loss rate, but if it's really unfun to play against and leads to degenerate sorts of matches, that's also another dimension that has to be considered when we're making our changes. That doesn't necessarily come into play as much in rating. The Dragon's probably not posting on the forums complaining about how boring that fight was.
Yeah. You're gonna love this question, Alex. You're gonna appreciate this. To the floor.
Hi guys. What happened to Medan from the comic series? Wasn't he supposed to be the new Guardian?
Yeah, Alex, we're listening.
You crafted iTech.
So, what happened to Medan? Great question. We've danced around this for a long time. How to put this? Certain fiction exists outside of the world of Warcraft that we love, but isn't necessarily what we would consider canon. So Medan is Guardian isn't considered canon in Warcraft lore, which is why for the last 5 years you haven't seen a reference to him. So that doesn't mean that there can't be a story for Medan. It's just not like it was laid out in the comics.
So TLDR, if you love something, let it go?
That's it.
We have a player online who wants to know about artifact power, and they want to know if you've considered pooling your artifact power on your character so that you can reuse it for other specs and other weapons without having to level that character up separately kind of for a month to get up to a place where they're viable.
I mean, so there's a couple of facets there. I think really the problem that's trying to solve is the desire for catch-up on other characters or other specs when it comes to leveling your artifacts. So something that was alluded to in the panel yesterday is a desire to offer much more accelerated, aggressive catch-up on artifact knowledge in 7.15 and beyond. So you'll be able to, if you're significantly behind the curve on artifact knowledge, you'll be able to just purchase those knowledge tomes directly from your researcher for order resources without having to wait the 3+ days per level. That way you can really just get into the fray, get into the thick of things, start leveling your weapons. As far as off-spec and multi-spec stuff goes, there I think knowledge also does solve that to a large degree. If you've been primarily focusing on one weapon, you have your knowledge levels pretty high, and you've been neglecting your others, as soon as you switch over, you're very, very rapidly going to be able to get your first couple of gold traits, a couple dozen points, and really get your spec within striking distance of the others. Obviously, if you want it to be your new main primary spec, that's a different story, and that'll require longer-term time investment. But the way the whole system is structured, if you switch over and start focusing, let's say you were assassination, you want to be outlaw now, you start focusing on your outlaw weapon, a month or so down the line, there isn't going to be a meaningful difference between you and someone who had never even dabbled with assassination to begin with.
So our next question is from Hazka here at BlizzCon.
Hazka, Burning Blade, shout out to Gorehammer. I've been one achievement away from the Salty achievement, or from the Salty title, for quite a long time now. Where'd the Stranglethorn Fishing Derby go, and do you have any plans for it in the future?
Yeah, so Stranglethorn Fishing, we had to turn it off because of some tech things. And we are bringing it back in the future. I'm not sure if we know when.
I think aiming for 7.15,
Yeah,
but don't take that as a promise. That's a goal. We were also aiming for 7.1 until 2 weeks ago, for reference.
Yeah.
Basically, the whole tournament was set up around the premise of there can be one winner per realm. The first person on a realm that brings the required fish back in is the winner for that week. Well, in the post-Legion world of sharding, and the way we had to rebuild our architecture to make things like the smooth Legion launch happen, there isn't that clear one-to-one relationship anymore of there is a Stranglethorn and a realm. And that made the entire thing break down in horrible ways that would have been a really negative experience for players. So we're actually looking at, when it comes back, it's likely going to be a region-wide contest. Like the Stranglethorn Fishing Tournament will be like all of North America or all of Europe, and it'll be the first 100, let's say, or the first 50, something along those lines to turn it in will win the prize. That way it also evens things out a little bit. If you're in a higher pop realm, you're not going to be disadvantaged in trying to complete it.
Well, that's encouraging. You're going to like this one too, Alex. This one is from online, and they want to know, where is Raytheon in Legion?
So, for those of you that played beta, Raytheon was around. We tried to get him into High Mountain in one of the quest lines. And more so, he doesn't fall off. Not that he was integral to the narrative. And we actually ran into a lot of problems with it. There was just time issues, timetable issues that we just really couldn't get to work. So for now, he's still wandering Azeroth, and we will see him in a future content update. But for now, he's just wandering.
All right. Our next question is from someone here at BlizzCon.
Zen from Lightbringer. For the last 3 expansions, it was very difficult to keep up with leveling alts. And as somebody who really appreciates playing alts, it always felt like either they're guarded behind the rep grinds or arcane knowledge grinds or something like that. I understand you're making improvements to arcane knowledge, but still feels like a lot of the things should be account-wide.
Yeah, like reputation.
Yeah. Reputations, and just make it easier for us to play alts, not to do chores on alts.
Yeah, I agree. I think, I am also a player who plays a lot of alts, and I think what we try to do is we try to strike a balance between playing your main character or playing a character that you have a lot of progression already in, and also playing the character that you want to progress and having a meaningful progression system there, and trying to take away some of those things that do feel more like a chore or feel like it's it's not a fun experience to play through multiple times. So I think all those things are on the table. We talked about the artifact knowledge catch-up that we're doing in the future, which will help with artifacts. I think we're looking at reputation as well. There's some new things in 7.2 we want to look at with reputation for even characters at max reputation. So it's not just as easy as flipping it over and saying like you can earn rep on other characters, but I agree with you. I think in Legion there's so much more content to play through. Like when I switch to a different character, I get a whole new class order campaign. I get a whole new profession quest line, which is awesome. But trying to minimize at the same time the things that everybody has to go through.
I think it's also worth noting, from the other end of the other side of it is looking at what are the things that are gated behind those reputations, if you're talking about rep in particular. So in 7.1, we made the attunements to access the Suramar dungeons account-wide. We also made unlocking world quests account-wide. Those are two of the biggest things that made you feel like if you were used to having those things on one character, there were absolute must-haves on an alt, and it wasn't an optional thing. So in that world, well, once you have those things up front, if reputation is there, just to sort of measure your progress through the storyline if you want to play through it a second time, or let's say your main was a blacksmith and enchanter, but your alt is a leatherworker, and so you want to get your Dreamweaver's rep up to get leatherworking patterns on your leatherworker, that may be another form of progression that isn't so mandatory or feels like it's crippling your ability to play that character. And so we want to, again, like Matt said, strike that balance and draw the line between things that are excluding you and things that would remove goals, because part of playing and progressing an alt is striving towards and reaching goals.
Well, on the bright side, Legion Pathfinder is account-wide. Yep. That account-wide flying. We have another question from online, and they want to know, are any of the other basic race mounts, like human horses or Forsaken skeletal horses, going to get graphical updates the way that we saw Tauren Kodos get updates?
So it's really hard to give a definitive yes or no to that. That decision-making comes along when we were talking about what is most relevant to the storytelling we're doing at the game this time. So in the case of Legion, we felt like, I used Kodo as an example to say, we're going to see a lot of Tauren. That's clearly a very Tauren-related mount, and in that case, it made a lot of sense to update them along with the Tauren updates that we were doing. So in the future, I'd say have hope. It's like I said, it's hard to say, yeah, we're going to do the horse, next week or whatever, but we're always looking for reasons to go back and update older content like that when it makes sense in the newer content that we're building.
But we want them. We have another question from a member of our audience.
Right, yeah. So the role players of Moonguard have a bit of a lore question for you. So, given that Blood Elf Paladins get their power from the Sunwell these days, and the Sunwell's on Azeroth, what's the effective range of it? How does it work on other planets and other timelines? Is it a trans-dimensional cross? What's up with that?
So, the Sunwell. Holy magic is woven throughout the entirety of the cosmos, right? So, while the Sunwell exists in a certain specific location, its magic will absolutely kind of travel through everything in the universe as light does. So effectively, there's no range.
That is how light works. That is how light works. We have another question from one of our players online, and they want to know, are there any plans to turn the World of Warcraft token into a currency that could be used to buy other character services, like realm hops or changes of your faction or customization?
Yes.
Louder for the people in the back.
When we actually designed the system, we actually designed it to be useful across all the different kind of services that we have. And before we launched the system, in order to kind of make sure it was a smooth system that worked in the way that we wanted it to, we backed off of that and changed it to be 30 days of time only. But we do have plans to expand that in the very near future.
Would that be like a separate part of the auction house? Because right now the token is all by itself.
So the token will remain by itself, and you would have an option to redeem a token for 30 days of game time or a certain amount of Battle.net balance.
All right. Our next question is from Adam here at BlizzCon.
Hey guys, Shinjaru, Brewmaster Monk, Ice Crown. Are you ever going to update old vanilla armor sets, or even older, or even other expansions? Also, why don't you increase the main backpack?
Good God, yes. Why?
I'll start with the armor set question. So we do from time to time try to go back and not necessarily just revamp older armor sets, but we try to take inspiration from them and reintroduce them with sort of like updated graphics and appearances. So probably, I don't think there's going to be a case where we go back and specifically just change existing art one for one as much as using it as inspiration.
We'll get to that.
And I don't have the bag answer for you.
Okay, so there's a little bit of an anecdote about the backpack, which I need to share, which is for a long time, there's been this almost a myth on the design team that changing the backpack is incredibly difficult and it's going to cause a lot of problems. And I said that once in a meeting, and immediately after the meeting, our gameplay engineer, Pat Magruder, came over and he's like, "What are you talking about? It's not that hard. Why do you guys keep saying that?" And I know, and I was like, we've been saying that. Nobody knew that that was actually true. So it's not as easy as what he was saying. Like the gameplay side of it is easy, but the UI side maybe takes a little bit of work. So I will say we are looking at it. I wish I could give you guys an exact patch, but it's something. I actually think I'm a little worried that if we do it, we don't know like what else people will ask for every time, because it's kind of like that thing that everyone talks about. So
we'll just dangle it there, hold it over you.
Yeah, exactly. Because now you guys know it's easy. So
I think the broader question of inventory space, right? I mean, obviously we've continued to increase bag sizes right up until Legion, where we didn't do that further, because we instead, with things like the transmog system and otherwise, pulled a lot out of your inventory. More things going into the toy box, more things going to other places. You have the reagent bank that makes it more easier to store and file those away. And so at some point, it raises the question of, if you want more space, we can give you more space and you'll fill it. But then you start to need you need bag mods, and you're filtering through 142 slots. We'd rather take a step back and ask the question, why are you feeling that you need to carry 142 items around with you? And what are we doing that's making bag space such a contentious issue? And let's fix it on that side of things.
Secondary stats. No. Okay.
Oh, sheesh.
So really quick, I just wanted to add one thing about the armor. We get a lot of questions about updating older content, and I think one of the things we're really sensitive to is the nostalgia that players have for the roots in the game. And so anytime we're talking about armor sets, mounts, anything like that, if we go in and we change them, chances are it's going to be split down the middle as to whether or not people feel like it was an improvement or that we ruined what they felt like was a really important part of the game for them. So it's something we're always balancing and thinking about when we make decisions like that. And I think that's why we always err on the side of, let's use older content as inspiration for newer content, but not necessarily go back and change it wholesale.
One extra little tidbit of info. So patch 7.2. So this wasn't mentioned in the panel yesterday, but the raid armor that you'll be getting from the Tomb of Sargeras is in fact very, very heavily inspired by the Tier 6 Black Temple sets. So if you want to imagine what World of Warcraft's artists today, with our engine, with the armor tech that we have today, would do to, let's say, the Lightbringer set for Paladins, well, you'll have to see that in 7.2.
Our next question is from an online player, and they want to know if you've ever considered removing like gathering professions as a thing that counts against your professions, so that you could have like 2 professions and a gathering profession, or you could have all of the gathering professions and then only one crafting profession.
Actually, this comes up I think every expansion we've talked about this. It comes up internally a lot too. And the one thing that we always look at is how core professions are to the overall character that you have. So if you have the druid who's an herbalist, that's a meaningful connection to that character. So what happens if you are an herbalist and you get another thing on top of that? So we like how professions diversify our characters beyond just class. It's class and profession ends up being a big part of who your character is. But again, it comes up all the time, so who knows, we could do it.
I got distracted by Pepe, I'm sorry. What's your question, Carol?
Hi, I'm also known as Elena from the Bearers of Light of Moonguard. Please don't judge me. First of all, I want to say thank you for Legion. I absolutely love this expansion. I guess they do too. And I love the artifact weapons. So my question is, what's in store for our weapon in future expansions? And if they are not going forward, what are you replacing them with?
So, great question. We said from the outset when we introduced artifact weapons that these were going to be a feature confined to Legion the same way that the Garrison was confined to Warlords. Part of what that means for us is that it actually frees us to really do crazier, bolder, more exciting things with the feature that we could never really do if we were putting it out there and committing to update it for years and years and years to come. we wouldn't really be comfortable committing to the idea that you're never again going to get a weapon upgrade. And we probably wouldn't want to be in a place 6 years from now where we're making your 133rd trait for your Ashbringer because you feel like you need continued reasons to progress your artifact. Now, all of that said, obviously there's a tremendous amount of attachment to this weapon, and we know that it's not going to suffice in any way, shape, or form to just replace it with a really high-level green weapon that has high DPS. That's not what we're going to do. A couple of things. I think one thing that we've talked about that we hope to do is at the end of Legion, when all is said and done, you'll be able to, players who have played through the Legion storyline during the Legion timeframe, will be able to unlock the artifact appearances as permanent transmog appearances to carry forward. So if you've earned that, Shattered Ashbringer, or you've spent, 30 hours of your life fishing with a lot of other paladins for that corrupted Ashbringer, you can show that off, going on and carry that with you as a memory of the pain that you've suffered. Whereas someone who joins the game 4 or 5 years from now won't have that option. They can go back, they can get the Ashbringer, they can customize it, but they can't take the appearance off it. Separately, the progression that the artifact represents and the max level gameplay and the desire to almost always keep leveling. It's like you never run out of wanting experience. You always have something to look forward to. We're really happy with the way that's played out, and that type of gameplay, that type of design is likely to manifest itself in other ways that just aren't a specific weapon this time around.
Would that be like kind of a feat of strength where when the expansion was over, you would no longer be able to earn those anymore, kind of the way mounts work?
Exactly, very much like that.
Cool. So our next question is about legendaries, which I, for one, am very salty about because I still haven't gotten one. Is there, someone out there knows my pain, I'm sure. Is there any chance that in the future we may see like a set legendary loot option so that people can gear their off specs and not worry about getting a main spec artifact, because right now it's sort of random, and like, what's going on with the RNG on those?
So the first question, it's interesting. With legendaries, we actually talked a lot before we launched about whether we would need a separate loot spec or like a legendary loot spec or something that would let you target specific legendaries. And it just became really complicated to keep. I think it's a little too complicated right now to keep loot spec in line and remember what it was set to when you last left your raid. And we thought that a second one would give this weird second ability to choose between them. So I think that specific thing we probably won't do, but I do know one of the things that a lot of people worry about is, okay, well, I can't play as a prot if I want to get my arms legendary. And that's something we will, we're looking towards. I think we have some cool ideas that we can help with, and so that you don't feel as bad and don't feel like you can't do the things you want to do because of it.
So I think, and also as just as Matt said, really, in the long run, we're planning on adding more legendaries to the game over the course of the expansion. And right now, there's a total of 8 for a given spec, but once maybe there's 10 or there's 12, it gets to a point where it feels like you really can't, with any degree of certainty or hope, chase after a specific one. And so that's a problem for us to solve more broadly, the ability to focus your efforts in some way or another. And the solution that we come up with for that is likely to also address the quote-unquote legendary spec concern.
Yeah, also the legendaries that go across your specs are also very cool that you can play with. So.
All right. Hi, Colby. You have a question for the devs?
Yes. Now that Blizzard has a cookbook, would it be possible to lend one to Nami? He's killing me.
He's got a point.
He's getting better, right? Yeah, he's already...
A badly burnt point.
He's ranked 2 now.
Making steady progress. Just imagine where he's going to be.
Yeah,
just imagine.
The sky's the limit, really, for that guy. He's really can't go down anymore.
Our next question is from one of our online viewers, and they want to know, artifacts and their appearances are great, but we have now thoroughly raided the armories of Azeroth's past, so how do you intend to extend or even surpass such a popular system in the future? We can't just go get more. No one would believe you.
Yeah.
We found these badasser weapons, guys.
I think that's probably pretty much covered by the question that we just had a little while ago. yeah, I think we know that it's going to be a painful parting, but we will make it make sense when we get there, and you'll feel good about what does come next.
Yeah. Our next question is from here at BlizzCon.
Hi, Panzer. Hi, guys.
Gary.
Nice,
Yeah, I know
nice
your
to see
name.
you again.
Great,
Exactly.
It's nice to see you too.
I play Braylon, an Alliance Paladin on the Blizzard Watch of the Q Guild. So shout out to them. My question for you guys is, how far in advance do you guys plan your character arcs? For example, with Garrosh, when he was introduced in Burning Crusade, did you guys know his ultimate fate right then, or did it modify over time as the story evolved?
That's a really good question. So how far in advance do we plan out character arcs for our big characters or little ones? Garrosh is an interesting example. Very far. Garrosh was one of those ones where Metzen and I actually sat down and we're like, we need Gromash's kid, and he's going to be in Nagran, and he has a destiny that we need to fulfill. And we didn't quite know where that destiny would go, and initially we wanted to go much more heroic with Garrosh. It didn't quite turn out that way. But I'm satisfied with where he went. But other times, you have things like Wrathion, who we had no idea where his arc would go. And it's just about who gets geeked up about the character or the whatever it might be, or the story, and where they want to take it. So that started out in Badlands, and then the next thing you know, it's all over the place, and it's awesome, and it's something we want to do more of. So a little bit of both. We do plan for a lot, and for much we do not.
So our next question is from the internet, and they said, back in 2014, cosmetic class accessories were mentioned in an Artcraft post. Now, is this something that was scrapped in favor of artifacts, or is it in the works for future expansions? I think they're talking about, like, maybe quivers and stuff like that.
Yeah, so that wasn't scrapped in favor of artifacts. What ended up happening was we started talking about that system and coming out and building that slew of class accessories that we showed concepts for, had a design for it, thought about how we were going to implement it, and then right after that is when we decided we were going to build artifact weapons for this expansion. So it's not that it killed it, we just put a pause on class accessories as they existed to kind of see and feel out what was going to happen as we started working on the artifact system. And I'd use the example of, like you have now a quiver that'll go with your bow and kind of matches the two, so we can make sure that as we built these artifacts, we could really play up that class fantasy as much as possible. So now I think we're at a point where we're going to go back and take a look at what did we accomplish and get through with the artifact system, and if there are more things that we want to do with class accessories and that class fantasy, we'll continue to explore that.
All right. Oh, look who it is. Hi. Hello. Hi, Ian. He got louder claps than you did.
Okay. In Azuna, the Naga are kind of weird in that we don't know why they're there or who they're serving. Khadgar just says, oh no, some Naga have showed up and want the pillar, why? And then Prince Ferrandis says they're working with the Legion, but then we never see them working with the Legion. And now in 7.2, they're in the Tomb of Sargeras, but they're in a different part than the Legion. Whose side are the Naga on?
Hi, Ian. How you doing? It's a good question. Naga, like humans, for example, do not all have the same allegiance to the same matriarch, for example. So it's quite possible that some Naga will work with the Legion, like they may in 7.2, although that's actually not a certainty, because we don't know what's happening in the tomb yet. Well, you guys don't, we do. And beyond. As far as Azuna, that is setting something up, hopefully. And we'll see where it goes, but Ajara certainly is interested in the Thai son of Golganoth. Why? I don't know. I mean, I do know, but we'll see, right? So that's a story that we'll hopefully blow out and expand in future content. Just wait and see.
We'll see.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Our Our next question is from the magic of the internet, and they want to know, do you plan to add more content similar to like the Withered Army Training World Quest? I have a follow-up, just
Do you want more?
so you know.
Oh, no.
Have you guys like considered how awful it is to be a healer? Like if you play a tank, you just go in there and you taunt everything and they all hit you and you run out and you're like, oh, I'm done now. And if you play a healer, you're like, oh, I'm dead. I have 4 points and I'm dead now.
It's not how awful it is to be a healer, it's how great it is to be a tank when it comes to Withered Army training. Like, it's a whole different experience. And if anything, that was probably the one tuning shortfall of the Withered Army scenario. That it was designed as sort of a progressive thing that you build up your army of what we call them internally withered Pikmin. And from week to week, you're a bit stronger, you have a bit more upgrades, you can make it farther in, and they're the ones that are carrying you to victory as you marshal their forces, and you're helping out. Obviously, the tank just walks in, says, hey, wait here, I'm going to go solo everything. That was perhaps not ideal. But that sort of solo gameplay, the sort of solo scenario that you can work towards and improve upon, that aspect of it was cool. Are there versions of that that could express themselves in other forms? Is there a piece of that that could work its way into something like, unlocking new artifact appearances in 7.2? Perhaps, probably not as involved as the full scenario, but solo gameplay is cool. Group gameplay is cool, but it's nice to have fun, challenging things to do in groups of all sizes, and that includes one.
I just want it noted that I really hate it. I really, really hate it. Our next question is from Andrew here in our audience.
Hi, I'm Zen Sunim. I'm the author of the GTFO add-on. And hopefully you've used it. Well, you already answered my question about the hidden Frosty K appearance, but I'm going to ask, are there still any secrets in the live game that still haven't been discovered by anyone? Can you tell us more about, hidden stuff in the game?
I'm pretty sure there's secrets in the game that I don't know about.
Yep.
I think there's a couple, nothing huge, nothing Kosumov level, but if you ask that question again in a couple of months, the answer may be different. I think it's been really cool to see the excitement around searching and discovering great mysteries like that. I think things like that make the world feel larger, feel more mysterious, let players be part of a community effort, a community search. We don't want to overdo it. We don't want it to feel like the world is suddenly full of Easter eggs and everyone's just looking around every corner, turning up every rock. But when done right, there's a lot of coolness there. When done poorly, as with a couple of the hidden appearance unlocks, or more than a couple as the case may be, there can be some frustration there. But we're learning lessons. That's not something we're going to stop trying to do. And I look forward to the community's efforts to uncover those secrets in the future.
So our next question is from the internet, and it is, do you have any plans to make this expansion a little more alt-friendly? Because I feel like we were told this was like, oh, this is the most alt-friendly expansion, and we don't believe you.
I think we talked about this a little bit before, too. I think we look at every patch that comes out, we actually ask the question of, well, what if two questions. One is if you want to switch characters and you want to try something else, how hard is it to catch up? And then also, if you're coming into the game for the first time and you hit in the middle of 7.2, how hard is it to catch up? Both of those things sometimes those answers are the same thing, like we have the same solve. In the case of knowledge, I think that's, we've kind of gone for one solve. But I think each time we look at both questions is different. As I said before, too, I think alt gameplay is really, really powerful. Players like playing different characters. They like trying different things and seeing how a different role or a different class has a different, basically lets you see content in a different way. So we're always looking for that, but I don't think we have anything that we haven't talked about to announce.
All right, our next question is here in the audience.
Hi, I'm Silver from Dragonblight. And shout out to Rivaled, my guild. And my question is about Assyria. Why did you guys pull a Game of Thrones kill on Assyria? Doesn't that contradict established lore?
Spoilers, right, yeah. Sorry, whoever hasn't seen that one yet. She dies. So, heroes make grand sacrifices in our game, and it's happened a lot in Legion, as we're seeing. And while Ysera, who is now mortal, by the way, after Twilight of the Aspects, is dead, her spirit lives on. So what that means going forward, I don't actually know, but it could be cool. It could be something cool that happens, but I wouldn't hold on too long to her being gone for good.
Interesting. Interesting. Our next question is from some of our online players. This was like one that we got a lot, and that was, will we ever have the chance to join multiple guilds, say one for PvE and one for PvP? And we know that you can do order halls. We know that you can do class housing. It's weird how people have been saying guild housing for such a long time, and we're getting everything but guild housing.
So I think a couple of things. Like, we recognize that, you know, we actually have different social groups that we interact with. So not just our guild, but we may have, you know, our raid, which may be coworkers or friends or past friends. So I think supporting multiple social groups in WoW is something we're looking at actively. We actually have something that we're looking at and how that could work. I love the idea of guild halls. I love the idea, like, all those are great ideas that we should be looking at. And I think, you know, we have so many ideas. It's a matter of which ones we do first and which ones we do later, but who knows?
Who knows?
I'm gonna keep saying who knows, but
Is that
what
the
I mean
same?
is
Is that
someday.
the also guild housing? Who knows?
I think when it comes to guild housing, the two main obstacles there are, first off, a bit of what we saw in the garrison and the danger of isolation. If it's a place that you never visit, then, well, what's its point? If it's a place that you visit all the time, then even if you have a large active guild, most people in your guild are probably out questing or doing dungeons or doing whatever at a given point in time. So if you're hanging out there, how much time are you spending in a private instance? And what harm does that cause to the overall fabric of the world? Second, the fun of the guild house, or whatever form it takes, as I've seen it described and as I've seen it in other games, is in, you know, customization, it's in decorating the place, it's in mounting trophies, whatever you'd have. Well, who gets that fun? Who's the one who's making the choices? Is it your officers and the guild leader who are deciding what you want to purchase and unlock and put where? Or is it, you know, actually a system that is benefiting the entirety of a guild? Those are the two big questions and challenges that I think stand in the way every time that comes up. It's not to say, as Matt said, that could never happen, but that tends to lead us to pursue other things before we return to re-exploring that idea.
All right, our next question is from Natasha here at BlizzCon.
Hi, I'm Arani from EU Argent Dawn. Shout out to Steel Song and the Horde Shadow. My question is, now that Vol'jin's dead and the Darkspear have no prominent lore characters, what do you have planned for the Darkspear next, and who will succeed Vol'jin?
Yeah, Mon.
Vol'jin. Tragic. Good question with Vol'jin. So there's absolutely plans. This isn't how not to make this spoilery. Just ruin it? All right, well, listen here. No. There's more to Vol'jin's story. And in time, we'll figure it out.
What does that even
That's all. That's really as far as that can go, guys. And that's probably too much. That's it.
Like, I for one am disappointed with that answer. I'm saying what everyone here is thinking.
That was a no-win question.
Our next question is from a member of our online audience, and they say, Legion brought big improvements to melee combat animations and spell effects for a lot of casters, but are we going to see any like ranged weapon animations get the same effects and the same treatment anytime soon?
Yeah, we're still working on that system, and you're going to see more and more of that as we move forward. So nothing that I can really give much detail about, but we're still definitely plugging away at it.
Soon, TM. Our next question is from here in the audience.
Hi, my name is Zillions, and I'm from Alpha on Whisperwind. We're recruiting, by the way. I have a very serious question. Could you please tell us about the future plans for pet battles?
Sure. So yeah, I think since we introduced pet battles in Mists of Pandaria, it's been an exciting system. It's not for everybody, but for those for whom it is, it's something that there has a tremendous amount of depth. People have really dove into, and we've continued to update the world with new trainers, new challenges, new battles to tackle. We do have some actually interesting plans in the works for an upcoming Legion patch. I will leave you with just these 3 words: Pet Battle Dungeon. And you can fill in the blanks, you can use your imagination, but we'll see.
We'll see. Our next question comes from an online viewer, and they say, the current talent swapping system feels like a nuisance. Why do we have to take extra steps just to change our talents?
Oh boy. Okay, so yeah, can you just? It's alcohol. No. When Legion was in beta, I think we actually had a couple different talent mechanisms for changing talents and how talents felt, how you could, where you could change them, what you could do. The one thing that we were looking at was we wanted talents to still feel like a meaningful choice. We wanted players to feel like they were actually making a decision. So it wasn't just, I'm all of the talents at all times, and I can swap between them at will whenever I want. So we wanted a little bit, I hate to use the word, it's a very game designery word, but we wanted a little bit of friction between the systems so that, again, like you could make an argument for, I want talent A, and even though A isn't always the best talent in every situation, I like it, so therefore, I want to keep it and not have an excuse to always change it around. So I think with all of these things, we look at them again. We keep looking at the talents that we've made, the talent system and how it evolves, and it's something we'll keep an eye on.
I think there are some concessions and conveniences, such as when a random queue pops, or if you're entering arena or battleground, or if a dungeon queue pops, you have a grace period during which you can change your talents, because of course if you're out questing, you don't have control over when that queue is going to pop, and you might want a different build for solo questing than you would when the dungeon is starting, and so we want to make sure that that feels reasonable. But beyond that, yeah, I think as Matt said, we moved in beta from a period of time where there was a gold cost associated with changing your spec to removing that and shifting it over to the talent side, because there are situational talents. There are talents that are a bit better at AoE versus single target. There are things that are better at crowd control versus movement. And all too often, it felt like, the extreme degenerate version was speccing into your sprint talent because it was trivial to do so when you were in town or in a peaceful area, just to move around quickly. But in more practical contexts, switching between trash clearing and boss talents back and forth as part of a set of macros, and functionally having all things when they were best, was kind of branching and bloating classes more than the talent system was intended to do, and removing the idea of a choice where you're consciously a bit better at A and a bit worse at B, and striking a balance.
All right. Our next question is from the internet, and they want to know if there are any plans to add a 3rd tier of level bonuses to items like Warforged, Titanforged, and Metzenforged? I don't know. What would be above that?
Right now, I don't think there's a need for it. I think that's, again, we will look. The whole point of Titanforge is it's really, really, really rare, and it should feel rare to you. And anything beyond that is like, and we'd need the word, which I would look to Alex for.
We'll find one.
Yeah, we'd find one. But I think if the need shows up, we'll come up with it. But right now, I don't think there's a need for it.
All right.
Metzenforge is pretty good, I will admit.
I'm a very creative person. Our next question is here in the audience.
So I love the battle cry for Azeroth, and so I'm wondering, are we going to be able to play with our friends who belong to the other faction without losing progression or faction identity?
So I think we think about your faction identity as being really central to World of Warcraft, really central to the game. And this is a question that comes up on a regular basis is, I'm an Alliance guy and I want to play with my Horde friend. I feel like we have to be really careful to keep the what it means to be a member of the Horde, what it means to be a member of the Alliance. Keep those identities very controlled. You know, different expansions kind of focus on different aspects of that conflict, and it's really important to us that choice continue to be meaningful. And so we don't want to blur the lines of those too much.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, exactly, right?
See?
It's, if Horde and Alliance could coexist in harmony, would you have the For the Horde and For the Alliance chants to the same extent? Now, obviously, we're not happy ever about two friends being unable to play with each other, or discovering that your coworker is actually a secret Super WoW fan and you never realized, and oh wow, we can play, oh wait, no, you're the wrong faction, sorry. We would that it were otherwise, but the fact that we continue to hold this line is a reflection of how fundamental we see it as a part of just Warcraft lore, the Warcraft universe, and the identity of this game as opposed to others.
All right, we're starting to get a little bit low on time, so why don't we take a few more questions from people here in the audience. The next person up is Catherine.
Hey, so Khadgar's been part of the lore for quite a while, kind of, you know, back in the Thrall days, but yet, unlike other characters that have been around that long, we still don't know Khadgar's last name or who his family is. I mean, come on, he's like an enigma wrapped in an Apexis shard, wrapped in like Azerothian silk, like, come on.
Khadgar might be his last name. So then you don't know his first name.
Yeah. It's Archmage, obviously.
Yes, it is Archmage Khadgar.
So he picked the right job.
That sounds like a fun series of quests for somebody, not me, to do. So we'll look into something, get a little more history going.
All right, I believe the next person we have in line is Kevin. Hopefully.
Hi, this is Scalectra from Argent Dawn server, Emberwing clan. Before I get to my question, for the Horde! To date, engineers can craft a motorcycle, a chopper, a rocket. Will they ever get the ability to craft a submersible like a submarine or underwater craft?
I think it's a great idea. We don't have any plans for it right now, but I think it's an awesome idea. I mean, I could totally see a gnome submarine or a goblin submarine.
Or a water strider.
Or a goblin water strider. Or a
Step one, make huge underwater zones with massive amounts of underwater gameplay. And then, well, obviously, right? And then step two, submarine.
Please don't do
You did
that.
in Cata, you had the Vashir, and you missed it.
So our next, you guys good? I don't want to interrupt anything. Our next question is supposed to be from Brett, but Brett's not here. He stood us up, so I'm Brett now. If undead can be priests, why can't undead be paladins?
Oh, let me try to handle this one. So, could you? So, the way the holy light is used between priests and paladins is slightly different. Okay, so priests use it for the preservation of life, for the most part, outside of shadow priests, which don't use holy light. Paladins use it offensively, and for the preservation, but mostly offensively. So in that world, we've got their biggest enemies, undead and demons. I'm making a terrible argument for this. Actually, I don't know why they can't be paladins. No, I'm kidding. Because it just leaves kind of a sour taste in your gut, doesn't it? No? Anyone? Not feeling
Well,
that?
what if a paladin?
50-50? We'll talk about it. How about that? Good? Okay.
Maybe the real answer here is that undead shouldn't be able to be holy priests. What's that? Maybe the real answer here is that undead shouldn't be able to be holy priests.
Our next question is from an audience member here at BlizzCon.
Hey, my name is Sowers, and I raided Fenestrate on US BlackRock. And my question is, will hunters ever be able to tame the unicorns that we see in Legion?
There are no unicorns in Azeroth.
What's a unicorn?
Did you say unicorns? Do we have unicorns in the game?
No, there are no unicorns in Azeroth.
I don't know what you mean.
But there's some in Valshara.
Oh, you mean those horses with the horns? Oh, okay. Yeah, maybe. We periodically create new pet families. The same way, when 7.0 came around, we added, you could go back and tame hippos and that type of aquatic beast in Draenor. That may be something that comes in the future, but no immediate plans.
And no unicorns.
So unfortunately, we only have time for one more question, and I kind of feel like I haven't gotten to ask a question. So I'm making the executive decision here, and I'm going to ask a question. Now, we know after Legion Invasions that you can do things where a level 7 can play with a level 70, and somehow that works. Is there any plans to expand world quests or holiday events, stuff like that, so that we can play with our low-level friends, or maybe they're leveling alts? We know you can do it. Are you gonna do it?
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. I think certainly things like, queuing for the Headless Horseman, there's no reason why that couldn't be a level agnostic process. Holidays, yeah. So definitely in plans for the future. I think holidays are something that shouldn't just be max level only experiences. They are Azeroth-wide celebrations, and it shouldn't matter whether you're level 81 or 110.
All right, guys. Well, we are getting really, really, really close. Do you think we have time for one more? No? I don't know. All right. We have time for one more. We have one more member of the audience here, Cody.
Hi. I am Manbear Wolf from Storm Reaver, and I have a great group of friends that I raid with cross realm. We're able to achieve AOTC very quickly. Is there any way we can open up Mythic cross realm to groups like mine?
So definitely, it's definitely something we hear a lot. The Mythic not being cross-realm when the raids are new is one of the few remaining bastions of server-specific identity and pride, and the concept of realm-first achievements anchored to guilds. Almost everything else is cross-realmable. For guilds that are looking for a new challenge, at least in the short run, I think the Trial of Valor raid, which is coming out next week, actually is meant in a lot of ways to pick up where Emerald Nightmare left off. It's meant for guilds that are done with Emerald Nightmare and their current difficulty. Obviously, if it's Mythic, then Mythic. But even for a skilled heroic guild, I think progressing through and defeating Helya should be a reasonable challenge. Going forward, of course, as 7.2 approaches, we will be opening up cross-realm Mythic raiding for the launch raids. But I realize that's probably not the satisfactory answer you're looking for. I think the concern is that removing that last barrier would further significantly weaken server identity and guilds as entities that are anchored to servers, and the whole concept of the big raiding guilds on your server, that even being a thing that you think of in that way.
All righty. Well, that is all the time that we have today. Thank you guys all so much for coming out here, hanging out in the main stage hall, watching our panel, everybody at home who's tuning in to watch us from all over the world. And most of all, thank you to our wonderful panelists for being here. It was a great time. I hope you guys have a wonderful BlizzCon, and remember to be good to each other.
Thank you.